Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Everything Tax. I'm just going to be very lackadaisy for everyone watching because I'm on my couch and why not? Thanks for tuning in. I see we have 7 people watching so far live. We're going to be answering some tax-related questions. Everything tax, specifically for South African crew and artists. So often we sit in circles and ask the same questions about tax and we don't get clear answers and we don't fully understand. And I believe that every artist needs to be confident in what's happening with their money and how it's been spent and how they need to be working with their money. So this serves as the first attempt to kind of look at in-depth questions that were posted over the last few weeks from artists on some questions they had. And then I'm just going to introduce our team from Lemie Consulting. Lemie Consulting is a beautiful company that I came across about 1.5 years ago because when I was transitioning into personal, just running everything under my bank account into moving into a business for various reasons, this team was able to help me pull everything together in an orderly fashion. Because I can't keep my own life together. But what I love most about them is that the team from Lemie Consulting are down-to-earth people. They're really friendly and happy, and they don't expect you to know anything or have any certain level of knowledge of tax when they're helping you, which makes me feel good because quite often I know a lot less than I think I do. Okay, so let me introduce the team. We have Marty, if you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, my name is Marty. We're based in Johannesburg. I'm the tax manager at Lemie Consulting, and I handle everything from filing your tax return down to objections and everything. So yeah, if you need help and assistance with tax, you'll chat to me.
Thank you so much. And then if we can hear a little bit from Anrich, tell us about yourself, who you are, what's your favorite color?
Great. My favorite color is green, for those who are interested. Hi, everyone. I'm Anrich. I am the payroll manager at Lemie Consulting, also from Randburg, Johannesburg. Yeah, and I deal with all things payroll. So if you've got any payroll queries from your RP5s to the IT3s, I'm the guy to talk to.
Lovely, 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 lovely. And next, if we can hear a little bit from Melissa.
Hi, my name is Melissa van der Westhuizen, and I'm the financial manager. I'm responsible for all the general and financial queries. I'm also responsible to compile all our clients' financial statements, which I love.
Sweet, cool. Thanks so much for making time to do this, guys. Like I said, I believe artists need to be more in control over what's happening financially. So I hope this serves just to as a first step in creating that relationship with you guys. So first and foremost, I just want to say that we do have a set of questions that we are going to aim to look to get through. If there are any questions, please do post them in the comments section. We will try and get to them towards the end of today, at the end of the session at least, not the end of today. And if there's questions that we can't answer, we'll table those, and then we'll put together a document and answer all those questions in a document. Just so that you know that after this, we will be providing the live stream in video format with South African Sign Language translation. And we'll also be providing written translations in isiXhosa and isiZulu, just to try and make this as most accessible as possible. Cool. So let's go straight ahead into our first few questions, taxation with Marty. And the first question is, why do we pay tax?
Okay, so the main reason we pay tax is that our government needs funding for certain things that needs to happen in South Africa. So tax is basically a fee that we as individuals and that companies pay depending on the income they receive. And we get various types of tax, like income tax, value-added tax, VAT as we know it, and company tax, and so on and so on. So, like I said, the main purpose is for the government to have finances to do stuff like fixing street lights, to pay government workers like the police and the fire department. So there is specific things that needs to be funded, and the money needs to come from somewhere. That is the main reason why we pay tax.
Great. Just you touched on value-added tax. Could you speak just a tiny bit about value-added tax and what that is?
Yeah. So as we know VAT, so there's specific types of how can I put it? You get input tax and you get output tax. And input tax would be stuff that companies can claim that we pay the taxes. So us as individuals, when we go to Pick n Pay or Spar or wherever we go, certain things do have VAT on. So on your slip, you will see there will be a portion that says VAT. And then that VAT gets paid over to SARS at the end of when that company's VAT return is due. So as a company, some companies are VAT registered, and they do pay over tax to SARS again on stuff they sell to the general public, as per se. So yeah, value-added tax, yeah, that's in a nutshell what it is.
Sure. Can I ask you just to keep that in mind when and anyone else, when we have answering the questions later, just keep value-added tax in mind and how an artist would work with that, with the questions coming up.
Yeah,
cool.
okay.
The next question was, why do we pay tax? And I think you answered that sufficiently with, government needs to spend.
Yes,
Government
yes.
needs money to cover certain things, whether we like the way they spend the money or not.
Exactly.
Is another question, but government needs that money. So let's just go to the next one, which is who should pay tax?
Okay, so as soon as you earn an income, you need to pay tax. So if you earn a salary, if you earn commission, if you earn if you're a freelancer and you're getting income from that, then you need to pay tax. Companies pay tax on what the sales of their products, and you can offset certain things against that. And I often get this question that actually is now there on the screen, which people ask, but I earn less than 500,000 and Sasha, I don't need to pay any tax. There's certain criteria that you need to tick before you can say, I don't need to pay tax because it's under 500,000. And
Sure.
one of them is that income you've received should only be from one employer. And I know artists, you guys do tend to work for more than one production house. You do more than one play or show per year. So you definitely don't fall under that 500,000 let's say that you don't need to submit a tax return. So for you, that specific thing would not be applicable. And then also, I know some of you guys work overseas and do certain certain projects that's overseas based. We're not going to cover that in today's shoot because it gets very involved when you're dealing with overseas tax, and there's certain things and questions that needs to be answered. So if there is anybody that do want to know something or have questions about it, they're more than welcome to email us or phone us, and we can take you as an individual and answer your specific need and question.
Great, cool, thanks. Yeah, I think a lot of artists in South Africa make a fair amount of their, especially in the gig economy, a fair amount of their money from overseas tours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's something we should maybe table and definitely look at.
Because there's a specific stuff that needs to be additional information that needs to be provided in order to assist them and to help them with that. So that's a bit more complicated than just saying this and this and this.
Sure. So am I right in saying a freelance artist or crew member or anyone that has worked for more than one employer rather, within a period of a year needs to file for a tax return?
They definitely do. And you will also see in my next question, there's a question, you will see why it's important for you guys to do it, because there might be a refund due to you because of the 25% PAYE norm they have from deducting from artists doing freelance work.
Cool. So we'll get there then. Our next question, if we're happy to move on, is how to get a tax number and how to find out if you have one.
Okay, so how to get one if you know you don't have one is, firstly, you can go to any SARS office branch and you need to take with a registration form, which is called the IT77. Need to be completed. You need to have like your normal FICA documents, your ID, your proof of residence, banking details, and then they will assist you to get an income tax number. That is, however, the long and frustrating route to go, and there is quicker ways to do it. The other one is you can ask a tax consultant to assist you to do it online, or even your employer. If you don't have a income tax number and they're doing their RP5s, then they can generate an income tax number for you. And then the last one is a rather new one. It's now was issued in March, the 27th of March, is where if you are a new e-filer, you can request the income tax number that way. I haven't dealt with it yet because it's so new. So I think if you are going that route, you're struggling to give SARS a call maybe to assist you with it, what you actually need for it is you need to have your ID document handy. You need to have a South African ID in order to do it. And also, I've heard that you need to have your RP5 handy because they do ask you for your employer's PAYE number. So I'm not too informed about that one yet. I haven't done it yet, but the other two is a very good route to follow should you need to have an income tax number. The other question that...
Sure, just for artists who are... just a quick thing. For artists that are working in South Africa that are not from South Africa, do you know anything about that process?
Yeah, see, then for them, it's better to then follow number 1 and 2, either to go into a branch to go and get a income tax number, or to go to their tax consultant or employer who can request it. See, then number 3, that new one won't work for them because you need a South African ID to do that one. Yes.
Okay, sure.
And
cool.
Then,
so we have yeah, go for it.
Yes. Yeah, no, and the other thing is just, let's say you forgot your income tax number and you can't remember it and your employer is asking for it. So how do you go about getting one or getting your existing one? So some of you are registered on e-filing, but you can't remember your login detail or you can't remember your login details and the password. And then there is a button on e-filing where you can request it. They will ask you a couple of security questions, and then you will be able to check on your e-filing to see what your income tax number is. Or you can phone SARS to find out. They again will ask you a couple of security questions just to make sure that they are talking to the correct person and that they can give you the number. And then if you do have the Mobi app on your phone, it's the new SARS app that you can file your tax return on your mobile phone. If you do have that, you can request your notice of registration, which will have your income tax number on.
Sure, cool, thanks. I mean, we're going through SARS myself. I've experienced it's an absolute nightmare, which is why I just got hold of tax consultants immediately. But for those that are willing to brave it, and can do it. It is a bit of a nightmare. And for those who can conquer the e-filing site, definitely go for it.
Yeah.
But great. Let's get on to the next question. The next question is a little bit long. I'm a theatre maker that stages my own productions. Often I have to buy props for performances that are consumables like food or rolls of tape. These items are used directly in the performance and contribute to the performance. Can I claim back tax spent on purchasing these items, and how do I prove that they were used as props?
Okay, for this question, I'm going to assume that you are either a sole proprietor trading in your own name, or you have a company. And then yes, the answer is yes. You can claim it because it's directly associated with your production. The only thing that you guys need to keep in mind and remember to do is to keep your slips. If you cannot prove that you have bought it, or that, that's where the problem comes in. If you can't supply SARS with the supporting documents to say that this is what I bought, they will disallow it. So the main thing on how to prove that it was a prop or that you use it in a business is that slippy. So I would suggest that get yourself a filing system, get yourself, even if it's a shoebox or a file or anything, keep all your slips. You don't know when you'll need it or when SARS ask for it, and if you can't provide it, then they will not allow the expense. We found that sometimes they do allow it if it shows on a bank statement, but not always. The best thing is to rather have the physical slip with you and to keep it.
Sure. What I sometimes do when I work with other companies is I take a photo of the slip immediately, because I'm terrible at losing slips, and I upload it to Google Drive, and I will call it, if it's a project, if I'm doing a production, let's just say, for example, Brandbar, which is a recent project that I worked on. If I buy anything, I'll take a photo of the slip and directly, or immediately rather, upload it to that Google Drive, because I also know sometimes the slip loses its color and stuff like that.
Exactly.
You said that was assuming for a sole proprietor or company. What happens if it's not a sole proprietor or company? It's just a freelance artist that has been hired to stage, manage, and has been given a budget to go and run and get things.
Yes. Okay. So the same thing works for them as well. Slip number one thing, you need to have those slips. On the next question, I will be answering when a freelancer can claim back those slips and expenses. But for now, if it's not a sole proprietor, not a company, whoever is doing it, please keep those slips. That's very important.
Okay, so I guess the lesson there is keep every single slip. Keep the receipts, everyone. Keep the receipts. Great. So let's move on to our next question, which is, what are things we can claim back on in terms of tax? So everyone get your pen and paper ready. Even though we will be supplying this document afterwards, I find it's always better to write things in the way that you understand it. And there's a long list here, and you're going to answer for us, Marty, is what are things that we can claim back on in terms of tax?
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to take, let's say you've got a company or you are a sole proprietor. I will get to freelancers just now. Okay, so any expenditure incurred in the production of your income, you can claim. That will be like salaries, wages you're paying. For you guys, it won't be agent fees. That I will get to with freelancers. Accounting fees, if you're getting somebody to assist you with doing your tax return or to do your books or whatever, that accounting fees can be deducted. If you're doing advertising on Facebook or anything like that, that can be. See, for that, you won't necessarily get a slip or anything. That will be reflecting on your bank statement. So that's okay, because you can claim that. Office expenses, anything that you will need for your office, either when you're renting an office or if you're working from home, if you're working from home, Melissa will explain a bit later on how that gets calculated, but that can be deducted a portion of that from your expenses. Telephone, internet, if you're doing marketing for your production or anything like that, repairs and maintenance, website, when you're doing a website, the website designer that you maybe had that helped you with your website, IT services. Nowadays we do tend to get a lot of IT problems and stuff like that. So you might get somebody to assist you with that. So you could claim that. If you buy any equipment, any props, like you said, stationery, you can even write off depreciation on equipment you do have. You've got your laptop, you've got your, any big things you've got
printer.
Your printer, anything like that you can write depreciation off on. Any admin fee that you might have a company doing your admin. Banking fees, that's a big one. Some banks do charge a lot of banking fees, so you can have those banking fees. Any finance charges, you might be doing a lot of traveling, those travel expenses you can have, tickets, flight tickets, Uber, anything like that. Then you might also meet with potential clients or lunch with clients or anything like that. You can claim those costs that you have. Meeting costs that you might incur, and anything like lunches, that would be the same as the meeting cost and potential clients that you do have. So if you're unsure, you can just shout and ask. We can always assist to say if you can or cannot claim it.
Cool. Thanks, Marty, for that list. I just want to come up with almost like a rule of thumb, because we quickly forget what I think as artists, maybe myself, we're also on that moral ground of, sure, I had a meeting and had lunch and coffee, but can I morally claim back for that? So is it safe to say a rule of thumb that whatever it is that you had to spend to make business or to acquire the business can be claimed back?
Yeah, that's correct.
As a rule of thumb.
Anything, as a rule of thumb, anything that you had to do in order to get your business, that you can claim back.
Sure.
Even like I know for artists as well, you do sometimes need to buy clothes for a specific production, or you need to go to a hairdresser or something like that, and all of those costs can also be expensed to the income statement as an expenditure.
Have you ever found the situation where you filed a return for an artist, in example for a lunch or a meeting cost, such as coffee or hair expenses? Has there ever been an issue with SARS?
No, I've never had an issue with that. We always do tend to see that it doesn't look, if you're going to claim 80,000 for entertainment and hair and things like that, then yes, SARS is definitely going to deny it. But
Sure.
we usually keep it and check to see that it's in line, and also that it's not overinflated, or then SARS will definitely red flag it, yes. But
Sure.
for us, we haven't had any comeback on that end.
Okay, great. And then just another question I have just on that is, a lot of people might not be traveling by plane or Uber where they receive receipts. What happens if you're traveling by a minibus taxi where they don't give you receipts? How do you prove that, especially for those traveling on minibus taxis?
You know what? I never had the instance where SARS have queried stuff like that. So I think they also do take into account that they don't give you anything for that. But then again, if you don't inflate that expense and you don't claim like a ridiculous amount, then they won't have a problem with it. It's just when that gets like big and you can't prove it, that I think they will have a problem with that. But I think SARS do take into account that you won't be able to prove that specific transaction.
Sure. Okay. Great. I'm happy with that one. So we have.
Okay, so yeah, sorry. Then the second half of my question. Okay, so now we get to the freelancers, how that one works. Okay, so important thing for freelancers is you guys will get an RP5 from your employer, from the production house, to say this is how much you earn for that specific project. Now, the important thing is the code that your production house used. I know some of you had the problem where the production house don't want to classify it as an independent contractor, but they do say it's a salary. If they do say it's a salary, you unfortunately can't claim anything back on it, because as a salary earner and with that salary code, you can't claim back any expenses. If they do classify it as an independent contractor, then you can use the same things that I've mentioned for companies and sole proprietors, and also your agent fees, because for you would have those agent fees which do make up a big expense on your return. So it all depends for a freelancer what they do put on your RP5.
Sure. So, for example, and I know we're going to touch on this a little bit later, but for example, if for 3 months, I know a lot of theatre complexes work this way, where they employ you for 3 months for production, and that includes your rehearsals and performances. And in that case, you will not be able to claim back on travel expenses to the theatre, or lunch during rehearsals, or costume bought for that show. Am I correct?
That is correct. If they classified it as a salary, then you won't be able to claim it.
Sure. I just want to pop in a comment that we got here that's relevant at the moment from Naledi. In terms of traveling costs, is it enough to have your receipts for petrol, or must you have a logbook kept?
Okay. So when you need a logbook is when on your RP5 you get a separate travel allowance. Okay. So if you get a travel allowance, yes, then a logbook is very important because SARS will have to in detail ask you where have you gone to, what have you done, for you guys just traveling and you just doing your normal traveling to the studio or traveling to a gig, a petrol slip will be enough. A logbook is mostly for people who get a travel allowance. But if you are unsure and if you think that let's be on the safe side, and if SARS change anything and they ask you now where did you go to, write on that slip it was for this specific gig or it was for this specific thing. So if they do come back and ask you, you at least know you've written down where it was for and what it was for.
I know I've had the case, and I think I've dealt with this with you last year, where I kept a logbook of all business trips. And in each case, I would say the starting kilometer, the ending kilometers, and then the reason what was it for, a meeting at a theater. And then quite often I would have proof of email to prove that meeting if it came to that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So it's a good thing that if you are an organized person and if you want to do it, keep a logbook. I mean, it's good for yourself to see where you've been, what you've been doing and stuff like that. But with just doing freelance work and just claiming for travel, SARS is not going to ask you where did you travel to. We've never had them ask us or for any of the clients, where have you traveled to? But it might be a good thing just to write on that little petrol slip, or maybe keep your logbook just for in case we don't know when SARS will change things and they will want to know more detail, and then at least you do have it.
Sure. Okay, great. Moving on to question number 5 is, how does the process of submitting tax returns work? Now, I know this can be a very long question. So, yeah. How does it work?
Okay, so the best way to do it is to do it online. Okay, so you can either do it yourself via e-filing, or you can ask a tax consultant's assistance to help you do your tax return. online, but I will say your first price will be to do it online. It's the quickest and easiest to do it. In order to do that, you need to be registered on e-filing. If you don't have already a profile, then you need to register in order to do it online. The other thing is, if you're unsure and you don't want to get in the help of a tax consultant or stuff like that, you can go to a branch and they do assist people to do the return at the branch. So there is a couple of deadlines, however. A tax season usually starts the 1st of July of each year, and it will be for the previous year, March until February. And if you do choose the route of doing a tax return at a branch, your deadline will be October, end October. If you do it online and you're a non-provisional taxpayer, your deadline for last year's tax return was the 4th of December. They do sometimes change that, so they haven't brought out a new one to say what will be this year's deadline, but you can more or less work on the 4th of December. And then if you are a provisional taxpayer, you get until the end of January of the next year to submit your tax return. So do keep in mind when you are submitting a tax return, there is certain deadlines for the way you are submitting it, and also for if you are a provisional taxpayer or a non-provisional taxpayer.
Marty, if you could just once again outline a non-provisional taxpayer and a provisional taxpayer.
Okay, so I'm glad you're asking that question. The important thing with a provisional taxpayer, let me just quickly get my... Okay, so there are a couple of things you need to do in order to be a provisional taxpayer. So unfortunately, the bad news is all freelancers are actually provisional taxpayers. SARS might not see you as a provisional taxpayer at the moment because their system is maybe still busy and they're still updating their system and everything. So on your tax return, it will show you're non-provisional taxpayer. But one of the requirements for a provisional taxpayer is the following. Let me quickly read. Any person who receives income other than a salary, so that will be if you're getting money in as an independent contractor, you're seen as a provisional taxpayer. So for now, SARS don't see you as a provisional taxpayer, but as their system as they improve their system, they might pick it up and you will be penalized for it. So the important thing is to maybe, with the next tax season, see to get your provisional tax return done. If you have a tax consultant, they will advise you on how to do that. Provisional tax returns need to be submitted August and February, and provisional tax returns are basically tax returns on the estimate on your income tax. So it's not the final return. The final return will be that ITR return you do from the 1st of July until the end of January if you're a provisional taxpayer. So yeah, the bad news is it's extra work for you guys, but you are actually provisional taxpayers. And in a later question, I will actually answer to say what you need to do when you are a provisional taxpayer and your employer did not deduct any PAYE from you. But for now, the important thing is if you're earning income other than a salary, or you are a director of a company, then you are seen as a provisional taxpayer.
Great, thank you so much. I just want to repeat those dates, for example. So could you just give us just very short, in an example, when should we be submitting this year and for what years?
Okay, so this year, the tax season opens the 1st of July. And it will be for the income that you've earned from the 1st of March 2019 up until the 29th of February 2020. That will be the return you will be doing the 1st of July.
Okay, great. Thank you. Right, let's move on to our next question if you're comfortable with that.
Yes.
Is I just really would like to I'd really like a full kind of rundown of how tax works from the moment receiving payment for a job to the end of writing off the admin for the tax year, if possible. This is obviously a huge question. that 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 is incorporated a little bit in everything we've said, but maybe you just want to comment on that briefly.
Yeah, let's quickly just recap. So if you are an individual and you're a freelancer, you need to, when signing a contract, you need to be sure what they're going to do. Are they going to deduct PAYE from you? Are they not going to deduct PAYE from you? If they do deduct PAYE from you, then it normally gets deducted at 25%. It's an industry norm that they use at the moment. So the important thing is to know how you're going to receive your income, with PAYE, or are you responsible for the PAYE and how that works. Okay, then the next thing, if they do not deduct PAYE from you, my suggestion would be maybe open a little savings account where you, as you do the gig and you know they're not deducting any PAYE from you, put aside your 25%, or let's say 18%, or anything that you can put aside, just so that you know that when you do your provisional tax return or when you do your income tax return, that you are ready for that tax that's coming, because there's definitely going to be something to pay if there was nothing deducted from you for the whole year. Okay, then again, the slip.
So can we highlight that again quickly? If a company, sorry to interject, if a company has not deducted pay as you earn, it's recommended that you save or stash away at least 18 to 25% of each income from a job in the event for the end of the year, when you will have to declare that you have not paid pay as you earn.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the people who they did deduct the 25% off, you know that money is already with SARS, so it's already been paid for. If you do claim your expenses back and they've deducted too much and you're actually in the 18% bracket, they will give you a refund. But if you haven't paid any PAYE and it gets to the year end and you need to file your return and all those income that you've earned get added together, you might get a big surprise and then you're not ready for it. So the best thing and the best advice will be to maybe just save a bit, because it will be coming somewhere along the line.
That has happened to me. I have had a big surprise before and it was not great.
Yeah. So the other advice I can just give you guys is maybe keep a monthly spreadsheet. Make 2 columns, one that says income, where you show I did this and this production deducted PAYE, this one did not deduct PAYE. Other column where you maybe have all your expenses. This is my travel expenses for the month, this is my telephone for the month. So when you do get to where you need to file your tax return or you need to send in your information to your tax consultant, you do have it ready, because if we need to think back 6 months ago what we did, you don't always remember and you might be missing something. So put aside that 10 or 15 minutes a month just to make that spreadsheet and just to keep it up, so that when you need to give the information, you have it ready and you can just update maybe.
Sure. Can we end off this question with just the information about businesses and tax on the 28%?
Okay, so if a business is not classified as a small business is if, in general, or just to give it in short, is when a company, you as a director are not a director of another company or a member of another company as well, then you get classified as a small business. So small businesses, on the first 70 something amount, you pay no tax, and then it gets 8% or 7% and then 28%, where if you are not classified as a small business, you get taxed on 28% straight away. So depending on your classification, if you're a small business or not, you will be taxed according to that.
Sure, thanks. We have some comments coming in from Liani. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Liani, I see some of your points are going to be covered in the next few sections. So I'm not going to push those questions through just yet because I think your answers are coming. But let's move on to the next question. Sometimes I work on projects where the contract stipulates that I'll be responsible for my own tax. What do I do in this case? I know we did touch a little bit on it previously.
Yes.
Let's just reiterate that.
Yeah, so you will be responsible for paying your income tax then. I think what you guys also just need to be aware of is that when you get tax, you don't get tax on your income from each project individually. SARS add all your income that you've received for the year, and you then get taxed on that. So if, let's say, for one project you haven't been taxed on and the other one you have been taxed on, that one that you haven't been taxed on, like I said previously, maybe just put aside a little bit, your 18%, even 10%, just to know that when that surprise comes or when you need to pay, maybe at the end of the turn when you do your tax return, then at least you've got that money. So the important thing again is to save your slips. Anything to do with that income, you can claim your expenses against that income, especially when you don't get, they don't deduct income from or PAYE from your income. You will be able to claim expenses against that income that you've earned because it's not reflecting on an RP5 or anything like that. So you will be able to claim expenses against that income, definitely.
So basically, I think the short and long of that answer is if the company is not paying your taxes for you, you are responsible for your own taxes in every case, and you should keep your slips. It's a lot of admin, and I even struggle with it. It's a lot of admin, but I guess if you are dedicated to getting the most out of your money, you find a system that works for you. Mine currently is a shoebox. With my slips in it, which is, but when I work for other companies, I do it on Excel and on Live. Yeah. So find a method that works for you. If you're not an administration person, you need to learn to become a little bit of an administration person, at least a little bit. Especially for
the other thing that's also just important to, if you're not paying PAYE and they're not deducting tax from you, you need to keep in mind that you are seen as a provisional taxpayer. So if you are earning a lot, then when you do your provisional tax returns in August and in February, you can already pay a part of that income that you are foreseeing that you need to pay to SARS. You can pay over then with that August provisional tax return, or you can do it with the February one. If you maybe, let's say you overestimated and you've paid too much to SARS, they will refund you the money when you do your actual tax return. So that's why provisional tax is very important. And if you can get somebody to assist you with that, that would be the first prize. Especially if you're not clued up with how to do it or what to do. I would suggest getting some help.
I agree, because that in itself is a whole seminar on its own.
Yes,
yeah. Okay, cool. Let's move on to, are you happy to move on to the next question?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, great. And this is one, I guess, a very good question, is how do artists and freelance workers get the most back on the taxes that they pay? How do they come out, on the better side financially?
Okay. So I think the important thing is, again, I know I'm repeating myself a lot.
That's fine.
On that RP5, if it says independent contractor, if they did not deduct PAYE from you, you can claim back all those expenses that we've covered in the previous question. If you're unsure about something, but you know that it was towards earning that income that you did receive from your production or your gig, then definitely you can claim back those money for it. The other thing is, If you do have a retirement annuity fund, or if you do have a pension fund or a medical aid, there is certain reliefs and deductions that you do get for medical aid and for retirement annuities and stuff like that. And even if you make donations to charitable organizations that issue you with a Section 18A certificate, you can also get as a deduction on your income tax return. So I think the best thing and the best thing you ought to do is that if you're unsure, rather get somebody to assist you with this. You might be losing out on something that you could have claimed, but you were not aware you could claim. Or maybe even you doing your own tax return and SARS gets back to you and say, but no, this is not the case, you can't claim this. Rather get that second opinion, just so that somebody who knows about it can fight the fight for you and to see that you get the best tax benefit. And yeah.
Sure, thanks. And I think a lot of questions on people's minds would be, well, how much does that sort of thing cost? Some tax consultants are expensive, or I don't have the money for it, and stuff like that. But I think we can end off a little bit with that later in terms of costs. But I just want to reiterate that you mentioned that financial fees are also deductible. You can claim back the fees, on your accountants, on your
Correct. Yeah, you do get.
Cool. Great stuff. Let's move on to our next question, which is, can I claim back for medical expenses, and what are the percentages?
Okay, so medical aid can be quite involved and a difficult calculation. I don't know that we've got a slide there that shows that medical tax credits that you do get. But I just need to make sure that you guys know that it needs to be a registered medical aid scheme that you do that you are contributing towards. Yes, that one. Okay, so tax credit you get per person is, the first one you will see is if you're a main member. If you look at last year's fees, the tax return you will be doing now, you get 310 Rand for the main member. If you do have dependents, you will get additional fees for them. So the main member and the first dependent will get 310 Rand. Okay. If you've got more dependents, they will get less, like 209 Rand for each additional dependent you do have. And that is per month. So let's say you've got your medical aid for 12 months. You will take this amount times 12 to get your tax credit that you will get as a saving on your tax return. You do get a benefit regarding the additional tax or medical aid expenses you've paid that your medical aid did not cover. But like I said, that is a very involved calculation. So I'm not going to touch on that today. You can rather contact me, or we can get in touch via email so I can explain that to you. But yeah, for now, I think let's just stick to the tax credit so that you get some relief on your medical aid in terms of tax credits that you get.
Sure. For those who don't have medical aid, because I was only fortunate enough to get medical aid this year with my income, because medical aid previously wasn't a reality in terms of being able to afford it. When I am just going to the GP on the odd occasion, buying over-the-counter medicine, can I claim back on those medical expenses? And I believe that works on a percentage of something as well. How does that work?
Yeah, you know what? It's very difficult. With some clients, we found that SARS declined that because you're not subscribed to a registered medical aid. If you are a company or if you are a freelancer, we can always, what we call it, staff welfare. You might have a staff member that's sick and you need to go and get them some medicine or something like that. Then we can always put it under staff welfare. But in terms of of you claiming it against a salary and you're not earning a medical aid, we have found that SARS sometimes don't allow it if you're not like got a medical aid or a hospital plan or something like that.
Okay, so the long and short of it is the ideal is that everyone at least should try get a minimum medical aid.
Yeah.
Even if it's a hospital plan, which is also a far stretch for some freelancers who live on every cent possible. But so you're saying it is possible to do, but sometimes SARS does not like that too
sometimes
much.
they don't allow it. So I sometimes get the idea it depends on who handles that tax return at SARS. And if they do query it, then some of them they do allow it. The other ones they'll tell us, no, you can't claim medical expenses against the salary with no medical aid.
Sure. So if you've bought, I guess this as a rule of thumb, so if you've spent on medical stuff and you don't have a medical aid, keep your slips either way and attempt to claim back.
Yeah, rather keep it. Yes. Yeah.
Great. Cool. I'm happy with those. Can we move on to our next question? In the event, let me just. I'm having to manage all these sliders here and everything. I've become a jack of all trades. In the event that I took on a full-time job for 3 or 4 months of the year, can I still claim back tax in that year?
Yes. So what SARS does is SARS doesn't look at, okay, you only work 3 or 4 months a year and you only pay this portion of tax. So SARS look at the whole year. So from March until February, it's irrelevant how many jobs you had, and they want to know what the income was. Like I said previously, if you was employed and they did deduct the 25% and not according to what your salary was in payroll wise, then yes, you can definitely claim back and you will most probably get your money back if they have deducted too much PAYE from you. So yeah, even if you've worked 5 days, you still need to do the tax return and claim back those taxes.
So just for example, I'd just like to reiterate, just in case anyone's unsure. If I work for a theatre, for example, that pays my UIF as my pay as you earn, and I work for them for 3 months, I have a 4 month short contract with them. And after that, I know I'm going to go and do another 5 jobs freelancing. The aim there is just to submit my entire year's earnings,
yes.
no matter what.
No matter what. So
and it will be offset.
Yeah, so basically what will happen is for that 3 or 4 months, you will get an RP5 if they have deducted PAYE and UIF. And you most probably have to do a separate income statement for those freelance work you've done because maybe they haven't deducted PAYE from you. So SARS looks at the whole of your taxable income to determine how much tax you need to pay. So yeah,
sure.
You need to declare everything for that year.
Sure, cool. If we can go to the next question, which is what are the tax brackets and how does it affect the freelancers? And I think we don't have to get into too much details, but because this will be available after the seminar. But if we can just summarize and touch base on that.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so basically there's a slide for that as well. So
let me just find the right slide here.
No, that's fine.
Is it?
That one, yes. Yeah.
That's one.
So that is the new one for the new financial year 2021 and for 2020, which you will do the tax return for the bottom one when it opens in July. So irrelevant if you're a freelancer or if you're a doctor or if you're an accountant or whatever you are, you will be taxed according to these tables. Okay. If you earn between R1 and 195,850, you will be taxed on 18%. So depending on your income, your taxable income, you will then on a sliding scale be taxed percentage-wise. So sure. It all will depend on what your taxable income is. Taxable income will be your income less all the expenses that's allowed. And all your like medical aid and your retirement annuity and stuff like that. And according to that, you will be taxed on that percentage that you fall under. And like I said, most freelancers get, when they deduct PAYE from you, they do it at 25%. But you might, when you do your tax return, actually fall under the 18%. So then you at least will get some money back from SARS. The other thing is just that if you do, with all your income counted together, fall into the 31%, there will be a good chance that you maybe need to pay in money. So it all depends on what your taxable income for that year will be.
Sure. And just a quick question: do we work out our taxable income based on the total amount that income we've gathered, or do we minus our deductibles prior?
Yeah, so it will be your income minus the expenses, minus the deductibles, and that will determine the taxable income.
So
on a basic.
Income minus expenses will determine the taxable income.
That's correct, yes.
Great stuff. Thank you. Okay, let's go to our next speaker. Thank you, Marty. Thank you so much. I know this is a lengthy video, but it's a lengthy topic. So yeah, let's stick through it. We're going to speak to our next speaker, who is André. You're on stage now.
Great.
I see the sun was getting a bit much for you there.
It was. So I had to close the curtain.
No stress. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be covering, pay as you earn?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to be covering most of the UIF related questions, pay as you earn, PAYE, tax, and any other payroll related queries.
Great. So I guess let's jump straight into then, why do we pay UIF and pay as you earn? And what are the differences?
Yes, exactly. Okay, so yeah, why we pay it goes hand in hand with what it actually is. So PAYE, or pay as you earn, is an employee's tax that is settled to SARS on an ongoing basis. So while the income is being earned, PAYE is deducted by the employer from the employee's gross earnings or salary, if you will, and that is paid to SARS. The employer is registered as a PAYE taxpayer, so the employer or company will take that PAYE from the employee's gross salary and pay that over to SARS. Now, UIF obviously is something different. The UIF is the Unemployment Insurance Fund, and it's a fund that gives relief to workers when they become unemployed, or they are unable to work as a result of maternity or adoption leave, or obviously illness or sickness. So all employees of companies or employers, as well as the employers, are responsible for the contributions to the Unemployment Insurance Fund on a monthly basis as well.
So, for example, because I quite often hire people on very short-term agreements, so I might need an article edited, and I hire someone to edit literally one article. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work for me to put them on my payroll system as someone to pay. Do I still need to pay for the UIF and they pay as you earn, or can they be responsible in that regard?
Okay, so it just depends how the employee is employed. It just depends on what the contract exactly says. So if it is a basic salary earner, then you as the employer will be responsible for deducting the UIF and paying it over to SARS or the Department of Labor. If otherwise, like there are some incomes that are exempt from UIF, commission, for instance, is an income that is exempt from UIF. So it all just depends on what exactly the terms of the contract are.
Okay, so I just want to try and make it very tangible. I offer Jack 500 Rand if he can edit an article quickly for me before I post it on Facebook. And Jack says,
Okay.
yes, I'm happy to accept 500 Rand. It's a once-off agreement. It was not going to be again. Or maybe I'll ask you again in 8 months.
Okay, so if that 500 Rand that Jack is receiving is a basic salary, then you will be responsible for paying UIF. If it is commission or if it is a specific usable code for a freelance salary, then there will not be compulsory UIF deductible.
Okay,
If that
sorry.
makes sense.
What makes it a basic salary?
So basic salary is if you earn the same, well, more or less the same amount of salary, your contract says you are a basic salary earner and you earn, let's say, 10,000 Rand a month from a company for 12 months a year.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Sure. Sure. Okay, cool. Let's move on to our second question we have there, which is, what is the difference between UIF and tax? I know we touched on this, but let's reiterate.
Okay, no problem. So UIF is the Unemployment Insurance Fund. It is insurance. It's there to provide you with income when you become unemployed. So in the event that you lose your job, you can claim income from the UIF or the Unemployment Insurance Fund. So this income is paid by the state from the specific fund, which is called the Unemployment Insurance Fund. And then obviously tax, or PAYE tax, is pay as you earn. That is the income tax on your salary or your earnings that is paid over to SARS by your employer.
Okay, cool. That made sense to me. I don't know if it made sense to anyone else. If anyone's got questions regarding that, please do pop them into the comment section, and then we can answer that at the end of this. But for now, let's move on to our next question. And our next question is, it's someone who's asking, on most of my freelance jobs, the people I'm working with to handle my 25% pay as you earn, in situations where they do not, how do I go about paying SARS? And I think Marty actually covered this previously, yes. but let's just reiterate very briefly.
Okay, great, no problem. So obviously, as Marty said earlier, once a year, all freelancers are required to submit an annual tax return. This is where you declare all of your income and expenses to SARS that you incurred over that specific financial or tax year. Okay, so if 25% has not been deducted on the freelance specific job you did, you will be liable to pay income tax on that income that you received. I know Marty did touch base with that as well. So yeah, you will be taxed according to the specific individual income tax brackets. In some instances, some freelancers tend to have paid more than enough, or more than enough tax was deducted, so they get nice refunds. And others tend not to have enough tax deducted, and they need to make payments on their tax returns. So on top of filing the annual returns once a year, you are also liable to file your 2 provisional tax returns a year. And the provisional tax returns actually allow you the opportunity to pay the estimated tax for the year to date, and are the perfect opportunity to review your tax situation at that point in the year, to actually see where you are going and where you have been with your finances.
Sure, yeah. So it doesn't come as a surprise at the end.
No, exactly.
Okay, great. Let's move on to what is an IRP5 form, because we've been mentioning it quite a few times. And how that looks. And if you could just take us through the brief understanding of an IRP5 form and give us, we have an example, and you can take us through that.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so in simple terms, an IRP5 is a tax certificate that is issued to employees once a year or annually. and it contains all the tax details in addition to the incomes they received during the year, the deductions that were allowed during the year as an employee, as well as the associated taxes. So basically, it's like a summary of all your pay slips throughout the working year. So the document is essential for employees to accurately complete their income tax returns for the specific tax year. Each certificate is also allocated its own individual certificate number and displays all the company's details for which you work during that tax year, as well as you as employee, your details, and your income and tax details. So it is also very important to always supply your employer or the production house you work for or the company you work for, even if it is just for a short period, with your tax number. So in doing this, upon generating your IP5, the company or the employer that generates your IP5, the income you received for your services will automatically appear on your annual tax return with SARS. So if we look at the screen here, this is a typical example of an RP5. And yeah, so your IRP5, the first, okay, so that's the last page of the RP5, which contains most of your income details on the left-hand side with the specific source codes, deductions, taxes, and tax credits with all of these specified tax codes.
So it's important to know that the company you're working for, if you are working for a company that is doing your providing your IRP5s for you and paying your UIF and pay as you earn, will have done this already for you and should have. So in most cases with our film actors, this would have been done by the film companies themselves. In the event that this hasn't been filled out for yourself as a freelancer, do you fill this out yourself, or do you do this again at the end of the year?
Okay, so at the end of the year, if you are not supplied with a IRP5 that it also automatically pulls through to your tax return, then you will need to manually submit or declare your income on filing your tax return.
Sure.
Thanks.
Just a quick question, because
it's just basically a confirmation from the employer to say, listen, this is the income that we paid this employee during this tax year. This is the deductions the employee had, and this is the tax or the pay as you earn tax that we paid on behalf of the employee to SARS.
Great, and I just want to add that I did ask you guys if we could add this IRP5 in just as an example so that everyone has a reference point, because we often speak about it, but sometimes we have never seen one.
Exactly.
So that is an IRP5 form. I've had quite a few situations where some artists that I manage, their IRP5 forms that have been submitted by the production companies have had errors in them in terms of spelling and stuff like that. What is the protocol then?
Well, you can obviously also then ask the employer to either resubmit the IRP5. Yeah, that is usually the best way to go. So the accounting firm or the employer that did the EMP 501 reconciliation or did submit the IRP5s, the best way would go to either you can contact SARS yourself, or they can just resubmit that information to SARS.
So the best would basically just get hold of the production company and ask them to correct that IRP5.
Yes,
as soon as you can. And in the event that it doesn't go right, then contact SARS.
Yes, correct. Always the best way to
great. Go. I mean, we briefly covered it already. But who should supply me with an IRP5? You can just maybe briefly sum it up again.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, so obviously your employer should always issue you with your IRP5 certificate. So in the case where your employer did not issue you with an IRP5 certificate, and you did supply them with your tax number, no need to worry. That RP5 will, upon doing the RP5 or the MP501 reconciliation, that RP5 will automatically pull through to your tax return on e-filing with SARS.
Okay, great.
So yeah, that's basically summarizes it.
Cool. As I noticed, obviously, when I go through my own RP5s last year, noticed differences in source codes and how important that can be in determining outcomes and stuff like that. So I was just wondering if you could give us a basic understanding of source codes and which source codes as freelancers should be using or watching out for.
Okay, yeah. So SARS has allocated specific source codes to different types of incomes, deductions, different taxes, and so forth. So these source codes appear as 4-digit codes on your RP5, and it's usually on the last page where all your income is declared, where all your deductions and your tax and UIF is declared. So all of these codes are actually very easily accessible on the SARS website. You get a tab on the SARS website where you can go, you enter the code, or you enter the name for the code, and they will give you a nice big explanation. But just to give 1 or 2 examples of source codes that may appear on your RP5. So I know we spoke earlier about different types of income. You get your basic salary income, you get commission income, and then there is also a specific type of income for freelance employees. So the code 3601 is usually the general code for income and all basic salary amounts. So that's usually employees that are employed on a month to, or on a year, on an annual contract basis, and they earn a monthly salary, which is usually the same. 3616 identifies the income received by an independent contractor. So that is specifically allocated for independent contractors. Just to give another example of a source code is 4001, and that would be an example of a pension fund contribution by an employee. So that's just the basic rundown of source codes and why they are there.
So when going through contracts as freelancers, we want to be looking at the source codes 3601 and 3616 essentially, right?
Yes, that would be the main incomes. There is also commission, which I think is 3605 or 3606. That is also one to look out for. I believe there is some employers or businesses that would rather clarify the income as commission rather than basic salary or dependent contractor. Yes.
Okay. Cool. So there's going to be a lot more of this obviously available after in the resource pack where people can read further on the source codes, which is more interesting than it sounds actually.
Yes, definitely.
So let's jump to our next question because we're running out of time soon. But the next question is, what is a tax directive and who does it apply to?
Okay, so a tax directive is simply an official instruction from SARS to an employer to deduct a tax at a set rate, so determined by SARS for an employee's or individual's specific case, and it's not deductible from the general income tax rates. So there are several types of tax directives for specific types of incomes, and it usually applies to employers who pay a lump sum amount, a big amount, to an employee as a result of their direct employment. So examples of tax directives issued are events where retrenchment payouts or retirement annuity fund payouts take place, in which cases SARS will determine a set tax rate, or they will actually give you the specified tax amount that is deductible from that lump sum amount.
Sure. How does can an artist or can a freelancer apply for a tax directive, and why would they and why should they?
Okay, so usually the employer or the tax consultant or accounting firm should apply for a tax directive on behalf of the employer or the business that is issuing the income to the employee. Yeah, so basically that's the best way to go with that.
Yeah. Sorry, Blythe, if I can jump in there as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do find that because they are deducting 25%, but you are actually in the 18%. You can apply for a tax directive, which you can then supply that production house with to say that SARS say you need to deduct only 18%. So that can be done if you can prove. They usually look at the last couple of years tax return, and then they will issue you with 18% instead of 25%.
Oh, and how does that impact that person's tax return?
You know what? If you do that year again fall into 18%, then yes, you're safe to go with 18%. But I would rather keep with that 25%. It's a nice way for you also to save money and to know that at the end of the year when you do your tax return, you get that bit back. But if you do and you are certain that you're going to be 18%, then you can apply for a tax directive. But if you feel that but if you then, for the whole year, you go above that 18%, you have to pay in. So it's usually better to let them rather take the 25%, and you know you're getting money back at the end of the year.
Sure, I guess it's situational to each person's needs as well then. But just to clarify, if you apply for Section 18, I wish. If you apply for a tax directive, that's what you're sticking to, and you allocated a set amount, like 18%. The other option then is to 25% and claim back your expenses and stuff like that. Okay, cool. I'm happy with that. Let's move on to a big question that I think all of us are struggling with at this point in time, is how will COVID-19 affect our taxes this year? Is there anything that you can tell us, insight on your side as tax consultants?
Well, yes, definitely. There are a few things. Just to start, the COVID-19 lockdown currently in place, it will obviously have a big impact on tax-related matters for businesses, individuals, etc. This also includes contact with SARS, so the contact with the South African Revenue Service, returns and payments due to SARS, as well as disputes. So it all has an impact on employers as well as their employees. So SARS has advised all taxpayers and tax practitioners to use the online channels such as e-filing, SARS Easy File, SARS Mobi app to interact with SARS. SARS has also provided specific dedicated email address lines for these purposes on their website. So that is accessible on the SARS website. Just to get to submissions of returns with regards to the current COVID-19 coronavirus, there is unfortunately no relief for the submission of your tax returns. So taxpayers must still ensure that returns are submitted on or before due dates. With regards to the payments and tax debt, there is no relief for the payment of taxes, unfortunately, and payments must still be made on the specific due dates. So, in fact, SARS actually said that this is a more critical period than ever to please pay your taxes on time. Now more than ever, the country requires everyone to pay their fair share. So, yeah. SARS also requested that payments are made on time and that COVID-19 uncertainty is not used as a reason for non-payment. SARS may as well continue with their collection procedures of all tax debts. So where a taxpayer is unable to make payment or can only do so partially, that's individual or employee or specific taxpayer, can request for a deferred arrangement during the lockdown period. And that must be sent to the dedicated email address lines that are available on the SARS website. So this is quite a broad area. So if anyone else would like to add on this topic, they are more than welcome.
Is anything from Marty, Melissa, anything on that topic, or do you think that's covered it well?
No, I think it covered a lot.
Yeah.
Great stuff, and I'm sure if anyone else has any other comments or questions, they're more than welcome to pop it in the comments section.
Yes, definitely.
And we'll do some further investigation into it afterwards.
Okay,
great.
So
Thank you.
No problem. I've just got one more point there to.
Oh, there we go. Provisional.
Yeah.
Yeah, employees and provisional taxes. Okay, so with regards to the employees tax and COVID-19, okay, so with regards to employees PAYE, that is deductible from their salaries or earnings. There is also no relief. So you're still liable to pay your tax on your salary that you earn. There is no relief for that, unfortunately. SARS has, however, made some relief available for employers and businesses. So if you are an employer and you are registered for PAYE taxes, tax-compliant businesses with a turnover of less than 100 million a year can delay 35% of their PAYE tax liability for a period of 4 months. So this will be starting on the 1st of April 2020, which has already passed, and will be ending on the 31st of July 2020. So the portion of the deferred PAYE liability will still be due to SARS. So it's not a complete relief. It's just a delay of your payments. If you are having problems with cash flow, then there is at least one option of having better cash flow.
I guess the key word there is deferred, not
yeah. A lot of people, we've had a lot of queries from people who say, oh wow, SARS is giving me money off my tax. No, that is not that is definitely not the case. It is just a delay of your payment without SARS incurring penalties and interest.
Great stuff. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Andre. I appreciate that. We are gonna go to Melissa.
Cool.
With some more general questions that we have. And you're the financial manager as well at Lemie Consulting. Sorry, you had to sit through the whole entire thing and wait until
I must say, I've got such a good team, so it was absolutely worth it. And I really hope it provides some clarity to all the listeners. And, you know, I hope really it assists them in their tax queries and answers.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. It's long, but again, important. It's one of those things.
Yes.
Great. So let's pop straight into the question. And this is a long question, but let's see how it goes. When staging work as a director, I often only make income off of ticket sales. That income off of the ticket sales is usually split between me as the writer and director and the actors. But at the end of the run of the performance, all the money is paid to my bank account. I then have to pay the dividends to the performers. How do I explain that the money I pay that's paid to me isn't all mine, but the money that I split with others? And what is the responsibility on me in terms of paying tax on this? So it sounds like this person does not necessarily have a business, a formal business. However, their account is receiving a large amount of funds that needs to be dispersed for salaries, you know.
Yes. I think the best way to prove this to SARS that the total income of the production or ticket sales isn't only yours is have agreements or contracts in place with all your performers or, all your people working for you in order to generate this production. The best way is to stipulate in detail in these agreements, this amount is attributable to this performer, or percentage-wise, this performer will get this from the total ticket sales. By this way, you have a binding document. You can actually prove to SARS that the total income isn't yours and you shouldn't be taxed on this total income. Therefore, it will be splitted and you will only be responsible to pay the tax on the income generated on your part. So for instance, if I only get 20% of the income, I will only be taxed on the 20%.
Sure. And then I guess the question then also that bleeds in from our previous questions is this person responsible to pay UIF or pay as you earn for these artists, or is it the artist's responsibility to do it? Especially if it's a production that is maybe rehearses for 3 weeks and performs for 1 week. So it's 1 month of work, essentially.
Yeah, I know we're covering that a few questions down, but I will touch on it.
Oh, sure. Sure.
It all depends on what is stipulated on the contract. Say, for instance, the employer hires independent contractors. Ultimately, the employer should withhold the 25% PAYE and pay over to SARS. But once again, I just want to emphasize, it depends what is stipulated in the agreement or contract. You will get contracts where the employer stipulates that the employee or the independent contractor will be responsible for their own tax affairs as well.
And that is legal to do?
Yes, yeah. As long as you have a binding contract stipulating everything and that it's been agreed between the two parties, yes.
Sure. Cool. On to our next question. Up until such time as I'm working in the theatre, all pre-production work is done at home. Can I and how do I claim back on my home as a workspace? I'm testament to this. Right now I'm filming on my couch with a ring light. My printer is literally on my other couch. Often we are doing readings at the dining room table. We often, like we did an advert, we shot an advert in our fridge the other day. That's a pick and pay. So we literally, when I say we use every corner of this house to make income, that is often the reality for artists. We try and make income out of every single corner of our house.
Yes.
How can you advise us in making the most when claiming back from tax with our space?
This is one of those important questions that a lot of independent contractors or freelancers are waiting an answer for. So self-employed individuals are allowed to claim back for office expenses, which will ultimately reduce your taxable income. But there's also a specific criteria that is applicable. I won't go into too much detail, but for instance, there should be a specific area. I know in your case, Blythe, it's not exactly the same, but usually you have to have a specific area in your house, that you use for your office space, that there's obviously a telephone connection or a printer or a chair or a table, the basic office needs should be in place. So how this claim works is it's based on a percentage based on your square meter that you use for your office space over the total square meter of your house. So just to give you an example, not too complicated, if you have a 100 square house and you use 20 squares for office space, you obviously then 20%, you can use say 20% of your total office expenditures, which you can claim and which will reduce your taxable income, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Okay, great, yeah. That makes a lot of sense, and I will be claiming back on as much square meterage as I can.
Yes, obviously you use your whole house, so just give me a call. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, exactly. Next question is, if I hire actors as independent contractors, whose responsibility is it to pay on the money I pay them? That's exactly what we're speaking about. So maybe we can finish it off with that one.
Yes, absolutely. We did touch it a bit at the previous, previous question. So ultimately, the employer should withhold the 25% employee tax when, they pay over the income to the independent contractors. But once again, it all depends on the contract that is drawn up between the parties. The individual contractor would also be liable to pay their own tax affairs if that's what the contract stipulates. Just remember, individuals are always responsible for their own tax affairs. So they always also just need to make sure that these 25% has been withheld and paid over to SARS.
And if not, make sure they deal with it themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I think that was quite precise and to the point. The next question we have is, when staging work, I pay for all the production costs out of my pocket when I make the money. Did we do this one? No.
No. Yeah.
When staging work, I pay for all the production costs out of my pocket when I make money off of ticket sales. Should that total income be filed as income, or should I be reimbursed the expenses paid to make the play first, and then only file what is left as income?
I know Marty has touched it a bit earlier. You need to declare all your income received within the tax year. So you're not going to declare the net income, which is the income minus the expenses. You're going to declare the total income. As Marty also mentioned, you are able to deduct any expenses that you occurred in the production of the income. So ultimately, you're going to declare your total income, you're going to declare your expenses incurred, and you are going to be taxed on your taxable income. So always work on your total.
So let's say, for example, I'm a theatre maker or a crew member or anything, and I know that I'm going to do 3 theatre festivals this year, and I know that, I'm going to be paying out of my pocket and having to be reimbursed expenses, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Should we keep in mind that we are still doing 3 productions throughout that year? We should maybe not get caught up on the money of that first production, but realize that it will be totals when it gets to the total expenses, total incomes, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And once again, it's so important to keep accurate records of all your invoices, of all your expenses, your slippies. It's so important because at the end of the day, we're going to use that in order to do the tax returns.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, I think that answers it nicely. If there's any other questions regarding that one, please drop your comments. Cool. The next question we have is, should I open up this question I have feelings on. Should I open up a business to run all of my services through? What are the pros and cons? And I can ask this question for myself because I asked you guys the very same question a year and a half ago. Is that I offer so many services. I like right now, artists are really adaptable, and we have to find innovative ways of making money. And often creative spheres is the best place to adapt and make money. Sometimes not the best money, but we adapt easily. So is it best to open a company to run all of these products and services out of, or not?
This is really a brilliant question, and a question that is asked by a lot of our clients, but there isn't a general answer for this. We need to determine what this individual's needs are, what type of business it are, what type of services are going to be delivered. To trade in your own capacity as a sole proprietor, it's a lot easier. There's not a lot of admin to it. It's an easy setup. You can just simply start to trade. It's also a lot cheaper to trade as a sole prop because you don't have to submit SIPS annual returns each year. You don't have to compile financial statements like a company. So there is benefits to trade in your own capacity. The negative side of trading as a sole prop is you ultimately responsible for everything that occurs in your own name. So that's the one risk. And also the other thing, it's not always tax efficient trading in your own name, because if you start generating high profits due to all your productions or, theater things, it will put you in a higher tax bracket. And you never want to be in the highest tax bracket of 45% and paying over that tax, because that's a lot. So on the other side, if you register a business, the benefit on that, once again, is you have a professional status, it's also a separate legal entity. You've got minimal personal liability with regards to that. And it can be more tax efficient for the individual and business as well, because you can qualify for small business tax. Marty also touched on it earlier. It's taxed on different tax brackets, not only at 28%. So that could also be a benefit. The downside of having your own business is very costly. There's a lot of tax requirements you need to adhere to. You have to complete your company tax returns, provisional tax returns. There's a few other tax requirements as well. You need to submit STIPS annual returns. You need to pay STIPS for those annual returns. And you also need to compile financial statements. And that is quite expensive because there's a lot of detail and risk that goes into that. So ultimately, we need to determine what will suit that individual and the business on its own. If you have a small company, I would really suggest you trade on your own name. It's a lot easier and cheaper, as I mentioned. But if your business is starting to get complex and there's a lot of products and a lot of services you're going to provide to your clients, I would rather split the two.
Sure, that sums it up nicely. I think I find myself in the exact boat, and I can testify to the expenses that one incurs. I was speaking to Marty earlier, and I said it's a lovely place to be in when you're a business where you don't make enough money to hire someone as a professional bookkeeper or administrator, but you have that much work that you need it. So it's like such a nice it's like an itchy point, like when an injury is about to heal and it gets itchy. It's a good point. It's just how you take it forward. So that's a nice subject, actually, and you could probably flesh it out in much more detail in further conversations.
Absolutely.
But let's go on to the next question, which is, what is the best filing system for someone who is not the best at administration? So I'm talking about myself, for myself now. I'm terrible at keeping Excel sheets for my personal stuff. I'm good at keeping slips in a box. That's fine. But other than that, I'm not an administration person for myself personally. I'm a great administrator for everyone else. But for myself, I'm completely lazy. Yes. What about someone who is not passionate about admin at all? All they want to do is create, they want to act, they want to write, they want to make the work. They don't want to do the admin.
Well, like you were smart enough to consult us to handle all your administrative affairs. So if you're really bad in admin and you do not have time to keep your books and records up to date, I would really suggest consult an accounting firm to do it for you. It's not expensive, and it will ensure that you have accurate records, that everything is up to date. And if you have any queries also with regards to your expenses or income for a certain month, your accountants and bookkeepers will be able to give you those answers. It will take a lot of stress off you. But for someone that unfortunately can't afford or doesn't want to have an additional expense in paying a bookkeeper or accountant, use an Excel spreadsheet. Do your books on a weekly basis or at least on a monthly basis. Capture all those expenses and income as per your bank statement. Make a nice spreadsheet, per month. So you can actually just track your expenses to see, how did your business grow? Did you actually incur more expenses this month than the prior month? But it's really important to keep accurate records, especially if you're an independent contractor or a freelancer.
I think that's one of the reasons why I went with you guys, is because as good as my administration is, I just know that for myself, I can't take care of everything at the same time. It's impossible for one man to do it. Well, maybe it's not impossible. Maybe but I'm not going to have much of a life. Already don't have a life because I work so much. But and you guys are often the people in the forefront with information and any updates that are coming out first. And this isn't a paid promotion. I'm not getting free accounting from the Me Consulting. I'm not. That's not what it is. But I can testify and say, literally, sometimes you cannot handle it on your own, and sometimes you think the fee that it's going to cost is actually not as much as you thought it would be. in terms of outbalancing with the stress of trying to keep your own books and then remain lawful in the workings of your money and stuff. So yeah, I agree, and I hear you out. But otherwise, if you can do it,
Yes,
do your Excel sheets and do it.
absolutely.
Last question, and then we'll take a few questions before we end off the session. Is what about money earned on gigs, which we have personally invoiced for, and not as yet been paid? Has not been taxed yet. Sorry. How are we taxed on this money? How can one SARS track this through an audit? We've touched on this already, but this is a very different angle. It looks like the angle that can we get away with it?
Yeah. I would always suggest when you do your tax return, do it as honest as possible. It's going to save you a lot of effort at the end of the day, and I promise you, you will be rewarded with no tax queries if you keep your affairs straight and honest. You have to declare all income received throughout the year to SARS, and please complete those tax returns as honest as possible. SARS has various methods to track an individual's income, and obviously there will be consequences if they determine that you have underdeclared your income. So please just be honest in all tax affairs. You're going to reap the benefits at the end of the day.
Great stuff. So I'm just going to pop in a few questions quickly that some people asked a little bit earlier. Nicola said, hey. Here's one question from Liani. Yeah. Hi there. I'd like to know how to prepare my small bronze casting business bookkeeping accounts for tax returns. Are there free or not software that you recommend? Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, okay, so what I would suggest is the easiest one is an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, there is very little, I don't know about free software that you get to do it. So I think the easiest way, Leonie, is to do it on Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, I can also answer on that because obviously I tried to go the free route as well initially because, again, I was a starting company and small and, and the free software is free only up until a certain point. And then as soon as you really need it to start acting, then it kicks in with a massive price. And then often there's you have to relearn an entire software, and that's not my vibe. Some people like that, and if that's your vibe, go for it, become a pastel or whatever, professional. But yeah, seek help. I think the lady's question we did cover. She said thanks for that. Leonie had another question. If my tax as employee was not submitted last year, do I do it now or do I wait for next year's tax season?
Okay, so if it was for last year, it was already due, so you need to get it in as soon as possible. If it's a refund, that's great because then there won't be any penalties and interest on it. But if you need to pay in, there will unfortunately be penalties and interest. You can't submit 2 years worth of income in one tax return. It needs to be for that specific year. So if it was for last year for the 1st of March 2018 up until Feb 2019, it should have been already in. So I will suggest get it in. Don't wait until the next season starts. Get it in as soon as possible.
Marty, quick question. If I have never done a tax return in my life, but I've earned money, what do I do if I have not filed a tax return, say, for 2016? Is it too late? What does one do?
No, you know what SARS do sometimes pick up that if there is a RP5 on your name, SARS will pick it up and you will get penalized for it. And you get penalized sometimes per month that you're not submitting that tax return.
Sure.
If you earned money and you didn't have an RP5 and you need to do your tax return, I will suggest get it up to date as soon as possible. If there is money to pay, yes, then you will be penalized for a late submission and there will be interest as well. If it's a
Sure.
refund, then you will be lucky enough to get that refund, and there will be no penalties at all. But I would suggest getting it up to date as soon as possible, if it's not submitted yet.
I guess in this regard, it would be best to work with a tax consultant,
I
because
think so.
you would want to get those figures 100%
Correctly.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
you don't want a review or an audit or
Yeah.
something like that.
The other question is from Liani again. It is the employer's responsibility to pay as you earn. What is my responsibility as a company director?
Just to add to that, so it is actually not the employee's responsibility to pay as you earn for the employee. It is the company or the employer's responsibility to deduct the pay as you earn from the employee's salary, the employee that they are employing, and pay that pay as you earn amount over to SARS on a monthly basis. So it is not generally the employee's responsibility, but rather the employer's responsibility.
So it's Liani, it's basically, if you are still watching, I know you had to run at some point, it's the other way around. It is your responsibility. Otherwise, you would have had to have a contract in place where it's otherwise stated.
Yes, correct.
But if that person, I guess, becomes a full-time employee, that's then, you need to pay it.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, great. So that's that. Amina's just saying thank you. Thanks for doing this. Learning a lot. Kiro says thanks a lot, Marty. Liani just said that she has to run away. We have another question, which is this is a beautiful artist that I've seen and some of her work, and she does a lot of work throughout the year. As a freelance artist. If your income was less than 75,000 for the year, would you still file?
Yes, you need to still file your tax return, especially if you are an independent contractor. You need to file your return. Maybe there's some expenses you can claim if they've deducted PAYE from you. So I would suggest, rather file the return and make sure that if they have deducted PAYE from you, you might get a refund because that is below the tax bracket 75,000.
Perfect stuff. And again, if you're unsure about that, feel free to contact people who do know and can help you with it. Cool. There's a long question here. Are we ready? It's from Joyce Engelbrecht. Thank you so much for this valuable information. I was told that as a freelancer, I can claim UIF from all my employers over the past 6 years. 6 years ago, though, I was employed on a full-time basis outside of the arts sector, similar to me. I have never claimed UIF, so can I now ask them to send me an unemployment contribution info and try to get the UIF during this time of no income? I went through this exact same situation because I come from a retail and business background where I was full-time employed and paid UIF, and I'm no longer in that position. Marty, what's your feeling?
Well, as far as I know, André can maybe just help you out. But as far as I know, you can only go back 6 months, André.
Yes, correct. So you can only go back 6 months after employment with an employer who paid UIF contributions on your behalf. If it is further back than 6 months, then unfortunately no. So to answer question, no, 6 years is quite far back, so that will not be possible, unfortunately.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that about sums up what we were trying to do here today. I hope that it was somewhat informative. It was long. Thanks everyone for their patience. But I think, being with fellow artists around tables and bars and dinner and stuff like that, we often ask these questions and no one really has the answers to. But at some point we have to sit down for this amount of time to really grapple with ideas and understand what it is. And I think even though if artists aren't doing the finances themselves and aren't keeping Excel sheets and aren't doing that sort of thing, some people are very good at that. But if they aren't doing that and they are, making use of other tax consultants, that is good for them to understand anyway. We have to be empowered and understand exactly what is happening with our money. So we're confident with our tax consultants. So yes, that's my little opinion there. I am full of opinions. So this seminar or webinar, it was obviously free of charge, made possible by LMIC. They took time in kind to do this on my ask. There's going to be a post up a little bit later open, because I did ask everyone, would they be able to afford something like this, to pay a small contribution? Would they be able to do a donation? Majority said they don't have money at the moment, which is naturally the case because artists don't have work at the moment. However, we will have a donation page up in the next few days, and the donation page, you can make a donation to a cause that LMIC supports, LMIC Consulting, and then you guys are obviously, we look forward to see how you will allocate those funds. Any questions from you guys?
No, thank you so much. This was so awesome, and I think it was a great experience for all of us. So thank you so much, and yeah, we enjoyed it. Thanks.
I know at the start of this, the nerves were not as calm as it is right now. I love the way everyone's calm.
Yeah, and I just want to say, anyone is more than welcome to give us a call if they're uncertain about accounting or tax query. We love our jobs and we're very passionate about it. So please don't hesitate and sort out your tax affairs. Rather know the right thing to do, and we will guide you with the rest.
I've put there at the bottom of the screen to get in contact with you guys, because I just refer everyone to you, because that's once I'm a creature of habit. But if you do want to get in touch with them, please do drop me an email. It's not that I'm trying to make profit off of this, or I'm not earning any commission off of this. It's just so that I can filter out legitimate questions to you guys without you having to answer things that we've already covered in resource packs. In those events, and I can just refer them to the resource pack. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much. I am going to go to that random track that we were playing during the waiting time, just for the fun of it. Thank you guys so much for your time, and we'll see each other soon. Just remember that everyone will be doing a translation in South African Sign Language soon. In the next few days will be available on this video and the stream. We'll also have a written translation in isiXhosa and isiZulu available, and Afrikaans for those who want to reference it. Sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Bye.